In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a recent interview with Sabres captain Jack Eichel, discussing how frustrated he is with all the losing and some trade rumors that could spawn from that. Clearly, the Sabres are in need of a bit of a shakeup. Plus, we also want to take a look at another article discussing some options for the Maple Leafs and the New Jersey Devils. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, Sabres captain Jack Eichel has made it perfectly clear in a recent interview here that he is fed up, is his exact words, with all the losing. He said every time his season starts, he dreams about winning the Stanley Cup. Every time he goes on the ice, he does his best. He wants to win. A true competitor in that sense. And he's really had enough of all the losing. He's been in Buffalo now for 5 years and have yet to finish the season above 500 during his time there, even though he himself has continuously gotten better and better and better every time and every season he's been with the team. As we mentioned, we did get confirmation yesterday that GM Jason Botterill would be remaining with the club in that capacity as GM, but there's a lot of things that need to be done. Now, Eichel wasn't the only Sabres player to be interviewed and make some comments. There was even comments from Rasmus Dahlin, their recent first overall pick from a few years ago, outlining how it's frustrating for him as well, especially he's back home in Sweden now, and a lot of his friends and other players that he knows from the area are getting ready to head back to North America as the NHL begins to return to play in all the different phases, where he might as well stay home in Sweden because there's nothing for him to do since the Sabres are once again out of it and not going to be involved in the 2014 playoffs. There's also comments from defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen, who acknowledged that when teams lose, there's often to see changes, and that he very well could be one of the first players to be traded, which obviously, he himself has been involved in trade rumors a lot over the past couple of years, but he has yet to be moved. Jason Botterill, in some recent comments, even referred to Ristolainen as being a member of the core part of the team. So not really clear what his future holds, but clearly the Sabres do have more than enough defensemen, which is part of what we're going to discuss here today. But I do suspect that Jason Botterill has a lot of work to do. They really need to do something and do it quickly. They do need to do something before the frustration boils over too badly with any of their young players they want out of town. If guys like Eichel or Dahlin want to leave, then that's going to set them back even further. Now, of course, we also had some comments I've seen in different reports asking about coach Ralph Krueger, where they had another poor season, but many people have supported him, including forward Sam Reinhart, who I saw comments from him saying that he was a terrific coach, a good leader in the room, and was certainly by no means part of the problem, and that he's a great coach and well respected and liked amongst the team. So I know many people around the NHL seem to have a lot of good things to say about Krueger as a coach, so I guess we will see how that goes, but as of right now, there's no reason to believe that he's on the hot seat or that he's really any kind of part of the problem. If I'm Sabres ownership or Jason Botterill, I'm going to be really concerned about a lot of these comments made and be careful how we make some trades here to make some changes on this team, as they clearly need a lot of pieces to get this team back in order. And you don't want to end up going down a road where a guy like Jack Eichel demands a trade and wants out, because like I said, that would be a major setback for a team that's already been struggling for a lot of years now, and obviously would be a big blow here. Now, like I said, they do have more than enough defensemen. There's been a talk for pretty much the last year that they needed to trade a defenseman to help maybe add something to their forward group. They certainly lack forward depth, which Jason Botterill himself acknowledged in an interview here this week. And obviously, like I said, maybe Ristolainen. We've heard Colin Miller's name brought up as well as potential defenseman that could be moved. Obviously, there is a bit of a need on various teams for right shot defensemen. Obviously, both come with an existing contract, which helps in a sense, because teams are going to be able to prorate what they have to pay out, especially where the cap is going to be remaining flat. So obviously, those guys are your main guys in Sabres trade rumors here yet again. Ristolainen and Miller would be your prime targets. Where they go, what the return is, I don't know. There's not a lot of chatter in that regards, obviously because of the time of year, but there's certainly some top teams out there that need help on the right side of the blue line, like the Jets, like the Leafs, that we're going to talk about as well. And obviously, as these guys become available and trade chatter picks up over the summer, they would be a couple of the guys you're going to hear lots about until Botterill pulls the trigger and make some moves. Now, of course, I also wanted to discuss a Sportsnet article from Luke Fox, which is basically a mailbag article where he was asked some questions about the Maple Leafs. One of the questions he was asked was what they would be looking to do for a number 3 center, and could they possibly consider making a trade with a team like Nashville for a center iceman like Nick Bonino. Now, he basically downplayed this, didn't think it was really an option. For starters, I don't think Bonino would be the prime center trade target out of Nashville. I think Nashville, for right now at least, still believes they're a contender, and I don't really see them dismantling anybody who they feel is a really important piece. I think if David Poile trades the center iceman, it would be Kyle Turris because he hasn't been living up to his contract. But obviously Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, Nick Bonino, 1, 2, 3 is pretty solid when you look back at their histories. But Johansson himself, as well as Duchene, probably could have had a little bit better offensive output this past year. But if they can get rolling, I think Turris would be the main guy at the center position that they would consider trading. I just don't see that. But Luke Fox went on to reiterate that he feels the Leafs' main area of concern, what Kyle Dubas is going to be focusing on through the trade market, would be a right shot defenseman, ideally somebody who can be top 4 for sure, maybe even top 2 depending on who they can acquire. And a couple of things that you're going to see through the thumbnail of this video are my suggestions on a couple of players they should take a look at, and that would include Josh Manson as well as PK Subban. Now, of course, there's some other guys out there that they've been linked to before, but I'm not sure there's much to it, like a Matt Dumba, for example. But a guy like Subban, there might be different reasons to think about this. Now, obviously, Subban had a bad year last year, but the whole Devils team did. But I do think, even though he comes with a $9 million cap hit, that they could talk the Devils into retaining some salary. If you think about it, as I mentioned in a video yesterday, Subban has a contract for the next 2 years at $9 million cap hit, but his structure is a $6 million bonus and a $2 million salary. I know from the Leafs perspective, they'd be one of the few teams who wouldn't be concerned over the bonus part, but if that first part of the bonus next year is paid out, then he only comes with a $2 million salary, and then in 1 year of 6 bonus and 2 salary, that's really not that difficult. And what if we get New Jersey to retain 50%, and that cap hit can go down to 4.5? Would you take PK Subban as a second pair defenseman on the right side in Toronto at $4.5 million? If you think about what they're paying other guys right now, like a Cody Ceci, that basically would replace him, but it should be an upgrade. Now, obviously, they could maybe make this as a bigger package of a deal. Clearly, the Leafs have a plethora of extra forwards right now with everybody they have signed, who they brought in, and obviously the Devils are going to be looking for help in that regard. They're rebuilding. It makes sense for them to shed a big contract like Subban if they're going through this rebuild. And so to me, that's a deal that makes sense. I mean, I'm not sure what the price would be to go get him, but if the Devils would retain half, I don't see why a team like Toronto wouldn't try to make a deal work at $4.5 million for PK. I mean, to me, if he can get back anywhere close to where he was a Norris Trophy winner or a Norris Trophy nominee when he was with Montreal and Nashville, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't give that guy a chance. I mean, obviously, with the leadership in that Toronto locker room, I don't think there'd be any issues with the personality conflict. I think he would be, a good fit there from that side of things as well. So I guess we'll see. But the other option for me, which I've been kind of talking about a lot over the last number of weeks, would be Josh Manson. I think Josh Manson would be a prototypical guy that they need. Obviously, he comes with a really affordable contract, be a similar cap hit to a PK Subban with a 50% hit. He's 28 years old. He can, he's got good size, right shot, played in the Ducks system his entire career so far, and I do think it's quite possible the Ducks go down more of a rebuild mode, and that we could see General Manager Bob Murray trade one of his top defensemen, including like Manson being one of the prime guys. Of course, Fowler, Lindholm, possibilities as well, but I think Manson's more likely. He's one of the more attractive ones because of his contract and the fact that he's the right shot. So therefore, I think that's a possibility. They could possibly look at taking the Kessler contract as well off the Ducks' hands, use the LTIR method to kind of go over the salary cap like they've done in last year. Of course, they're really good at manipulating things. They may not have to take the Kessler contract either. That might be a totally separate thing. Maybe they look at swapping a forward for a defenseman. Hard to say exactly how the package would be, but irregardless of that, I think Manson would be a great fit for what they're looking for, and I think they could make that accomplished, like I said, either taking on the bad contract of Kessler or at the same time getting a young forward off their roster to go to Anaheim to help with their rebuild. So to me, those are some great options for Toronto, and it was a much greater need than a number 3 center. I think Alex Kerfoot could be that guy as well. Depending on who they trade for a forward, I would probably hang on to Kerfoot more so than the other guys, like a Kapanen or a Janssen, just because of his ability to play center ice, and it can certainly be an increased type of role. But those are my 2 cents on that. Now, the other article I want to look at today comes from The Athletic, and they're actually analyzing some blue line options for New Jersey. So as I mentioned, this article doesn't reference the fact about trading PK, but I do think, like I said, it makes a lot of sense for them to go down that road, given the fact that they are still rebuilding. Have a mega contract like that for 2 more years. This doesn't make sense for him at the stage he's at for his career to be there, and it doesn't make sense for them to have such a big contract while they're going through this rebuild. So obviously they have some other options they can take a look at. We saw them trade a guy like Sammy Vatanen at the trade deadline. If they move PK, there's going to be some openings on that blue line. In the article references the fact that maybe they could take advantage of some other cash-strapped teams that are going to be uptight against the cap. Maybe try to snag a nice young defenseman, maybe like Mikhail Sergachev in Tampa, possibly Vince Dunn in St. Louis. Try to either do an offer sheet or a trade for those players, because they will have a difficult time getting their contracts that they're going to be looking for from those teams, due to the fact that, like I said, they're not going to have a lot of wiggle room with the cap. Vince Dunn could end up being a victim of the cap if they sign Pietrangelo. As much as I think both those teams would prefer to keep those players, I mean, at some point they need to make a move to get their team in order because of the cap, and it's going to be challenging. So teams like New Jersey, Detroit, Ottawa, the teams have a lot of salary cap space, can hopefully take advantage of some of these teams to improve their rosters without giving up a whole lot to do it. As much as I think both of those moves would be difficult, especially Tampa, they seem to have a way to get contracts done. I fully expect Julian Breezeball to get Sergachev under contract. I think Vince Dunn might be an option. Hard to say. I know the Blues like him, but it's a possibility, depending if they want to keep their captain, that they might have to sacrifice a player like him to get it done. Of course, as I mentioned, the Sabres have way too many defensemen, and a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen is still young enough that he could be part of their solution as well. He could certainly come with some term on his contract at an affordable rate. He's a right shot. And obviously, he might not be super happy to go from a rebuilding Sabres team to a rebuilding Devils team, but just the whole culture and the whole, way of doing things would be different, and he might be a happier player, more productive player. Hard to say, but there's certainly a team that we can link back here. New Jersey looking for defense. Sabres have way too much of it, so obviously, they could be a match and be some trade partners there. So let me know everything discussed here today. Let me know what kind of moves you expect to see later into the summer once we officially hit the offseason, and we can discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.